November 8th, 2022. Inside one of the world's largest crypto exchanges, customers are trying to pull out their money, and it isn't coming. In a matter of days, $8 billion will vanish, and almost no one saw it coming. This company was worth $32 billion. It had the backing of the biggest venture capital firms in the world. Its founder testified in front of Congress. So how does something that big disappear in a week? The answer starts 3 years earlier. In 2019, a young trader with a background in quantitative finance launched a new cryptocurrency exchange from Hong Kong. The idea was simple: build a platform good enough that professional traders would actually want to use it, not just retail speculators. Before the exchange, there was a trading firm, a smaller operation founded years earlier, trading cryptocurrency using complex quantitative strategies. It started small, run by a tight-knit group who trusted each other completely. That firm would later become deeply and dangerously intertwined with the exchange it helped launch. The exchange's founder built more than a business. He built a story. He pledged to give away almost his entire fortune to charity, calling it effective altruism. Make as much money as possible, then use it to do the most good. Journalists loved it. Investors loved it even more. Within 2 years, the exchange had grown into one of the largest in the world. It processed billions of dollars in daily trading volume. Investors were desperate to get in, and one funding round after another pushed its valuation higher and higher. The world's most respected venture capital firms poured in money: pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, celebrity investors. On paper, this was one of the most vetted companies in the industry. In reality, almost none of them had looked closely at the books. By mid-2022, when a wave of smaller crypto lenders began collapsing under their own bad bets, the exchange positioned itself as the industry's rescuer, swooping in with rescue financing and acquisition offers. To the outside world, it looked like proof of strength. Inside, it was quietly draining the very reserves the customers were counting on. To the public, the exchange became impossible to ignore. A Super Bowl commercial, naming rights to an NBA arena, endorsements from some of the most famous athletes on Earth. It looked less like a crypto startup and more like a Fortune 500 institution. Its founder became the face of an entire industry, a rumpled t-shirt and shorts billionaire who promised he'd give away his fortune to charity. Politicians took his calls. Regulators called him a model for the industry. He was, by every public measure, the good guy of crypto. Political donations flowed to lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. The founder became a familiar face in Washington, advising on how crypto should be regulated. To an industry desperate for legitimacy, he wasn't just a founder. He was being treated as the person who'd help write the rules everyone else would have to follow. The company's leadership team lived together in a shared penthouse compound in the Bahamas, an arrangement the press found endearing at first, young founders building the future side by side. In hindsight, it also meant almost no real separation between the exchange, its sister trading firm, and the small circle of people quietly running both. But behind the public image, the exchange and its sister trading firm were far more connected than anyone outside the company understood. Money moved freely between them, a boundary that, at a normal financial institution, would never have been allowed to blur. The exchange had also created its own cryptocurrency token, and a huge portion of its sister trading firm's balance sheet was quietly propped up by holdings of that same token. It was a paper fortune, built partly on an asset the company itself had invented. Inside the company, Some employees had quietly raised concerns for months about the blurred lines between the exchange and its sister trading firm, about risk controls that seemed to not really exist. Those concerns rarely made it past middle management. The culture rewarded speed and confidence, not caution. In early November 2022, a financial news outlet published a report examining that trading firm's balance sheet. What it revealed was startling. Billions of dollars in assets that were really just the exchange's own token, a self-referential paper fortune with almost no outside backing. Within hours, the crypto world was buzzing. If this trading firm's finances were this fragile, what did that mean for the exchange it was tied to? Questions that had been quietly ignored for years were suddenly impossible to avoid. Then, the CEO of the largest rival exchange announced his company would sell off its entire holding of the exchange's token, citing what he called recent revelations. It was a single social media post, and it was enough to light the fuse. The token's price began to collapse within hours. And because so much of the sister firm's balance sheet was built on that same token, its paper fortune was evaporating in real time, just as customers everywhere started asking the same question: is my money safe? Customers rushed to withdraw their funds. $6 billion in just 72 hours. For an exchange that was supposed to hold customer money one-to-one, that kind of request should never have been a problem. It was about to become an enormous one. The founder posted publicly that the exchange was fine, that assets were fine, that a rival's claims were simply not accurate. Employees inside the company were reportedly hearing something very different. The gap between what was being said and what was actually happening was about to become impossible to hide. Behind closed doors, the exchange's new leadership was discovering the scale of the problem. Billions of dollars in customer funds appeared to have been used elsewhere, funneled into the sister trading firm to cover its own losses and investments. The money customers thought was sitting safely in their accounts simply wasn't there. A veteran restructuring specialist, brought in to lead the bankruptcy, would later say he had never in decades of handling corporate collapses seen a breakdown of controls this complete. More than 100 entities, commingled accounts, financial records that, in some cases, barely existed at all. For one night, it looked like disaster might be avoided. The rival exchange agreed to acquire the failing company outright. Within 24 hours, after a look at the actual finances, that deal collapsed. Nobody was coming to save it. Withdrawals stopped completely. Customers who had trusted the exchange with their savings, some of them their entire life savings, logged in to find their money simply inaccessible. For many, it would stay that way for years. On November 11, 2022, just over a week after the story broke, the company filed for bankruptcy. Its founder resigned the same day. What had been valued at $32 billion was now, by most estimates, worth close to nothing. Roughly $8 billion in customer funds were unaccounted for. Employees who had joined believing in the mission were suddenly out of a job, with their own savings frequently tied up in the collapse. Investors who had poured in billions wrote their entire stakes down to zero. For the people who had trusted the exchange with their savings, the collapse wasn't an abstraction. Some had held retirement funds there. Some had held money meant for a house, a wedding, a child's education. For many of them, that money would remain frozen for years, with no guarantee of ever seeing all of it again. 1 month later, in the Bahamas, the founder was arrested at the request of U.S. authorities. ending weeks of intense media speculation about his whereabouts. He would be extradited to the United States to face multiple charges of fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. The trial took place in a federal courthouse in New York in the fall of 2023. Former colleagues and close associates testified against him, describing a company where customer funds and personal spending were never clearly separated. Some of the founder's closest colleagues, people who had built the company alongside him, took plea deals and testified against him in exchange for reduced sentences. Their testimony described a culture where the line between company money and personal spending had simply stopped existing. In November 2023, he was convicted on 7 counts, including wire fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy, after a trial where even his own former inner circle testified against him. 4 months later, he was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. The conviction sent a shockwave through the crypto industry. Regulators pointed to the case as proof that the sector needed far stronger oversight. Other exchanges rushed to publish proof of reserves reports, trying to reassure customers that what happened here couldn't happen to them, too. In the years since, bankruptcy proceedings have worked to recover funds for customers. But for many, the process has taken years, and there's no guarantee anyone gets back what they lost. The case remains one of the largest financial frauds in American history. The uncomfortable truth is that almost every warning sign was visible before the collapse. To employees, to auditors, to anyone willing to look closely at the balance sheet. The failure wasn't a lack of information. It was a culture where no one with the power to ask hard questions ever did. Behind every downfall, there was a decision, a boundary that should never have been crossed, a warning that was ignored, a lie that was told one too many times. $32 billion doesn't disappear overnight. It disappears one decision at a time.